Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Brad Musil, and welcome to my reading of The Utility of Religion, Mill, Nietzsche, and James. This will be my reading of Section A of Part 2 of Chapter 1, John Stuart Mill and the Utility of Religion. So again, this is Chapter 1, John Stuart Mill and Utility of Religion. This is Part 2, Religion and Morality. Section A, the moral case for the social utility of religion. Mill begins his essay by examining religion's influence on the welfare of society, most notably, and seemingly for Mill, exclusively, by way of the moral benefits it is thought to engender. Hence, Mill focuses on the relationship between religion and morality, which, to be sure, is what much of the discussion regarding the usefulness of religion seems centered around. If it is true, as is often suggested, that morality depends on, or is aided in some manner by, religion, and if it is true that a moral society is, in fact, a happier society, which for the sake of argument I shall grant here, then it seems we would have good reason to look favorably upon religion, at least in terms of its social utility. Many well-known and respected historical figures have advanced this kind of thesis, crediting religion with yielding moral benefits to society. Indeed, Benjamin Franklin once stated that, quote, religion will be a powerful regulator of our actions, give us peace and tranquility within our minds, and render us benevolent, useful, and beneficial to others, end quote. Footnote 24 cites the source. Similarly, David Hume, who is well known for his skeptical arguments regarding proofs for the existence of God, makes a case for why religion is necessary for social stability. Footnote 25. See Frederick G. Whalen's Church Establishments, Liberty and Competition in Religion for a detailed analysis of Hume's case for state-sanctioned religion. And then I also provide the source for that article. So that's the end of footnote 25. And for Fyodor Dostoevsky's literary classic, The Brothers Karamazov, Ivan Karamazov, one of the main protagonists, goes so far as to famously suggest that if God does not exist, then everything becomes permissible. Similarly, when describing Mill's early views regarding religion, i.e. those he voices in writings that predate 3 essays on religion, Carr suggests that, quote, from all indications, Mill was hesitant, if not unwilling, to assume a completely anti-religious position, end quote, and notes that, quote, his reason was not that he had come to dislike religion less, but that he feared anarchy more, end quote. Footnote 26 cites the source. Elaborating on this point later in his article, Carr claims that Mill's, quote, desire for social renovation was constantly held in check by his fear of social upheaval, end quote. Footnote 27 cites the source. These thinkers all suggest that there is good reason to think that religion might be morally advantageous. The thesis that religion is morally advantageous can be supported in a variety of ways, some of which I will now briefly detail. Some go so far as to suggest that religion is necessary for morality. Many philosophers and non-philosophers alike believe that it is impossible for human beings to develop a moral compass without the guiding influence of religion. For example, Arthur Schopenhauer, 1788 to 1860, who was a precursor of and a significant influence on Friedrich Nietzsche, whose views regarding the utility of religion will be examined in Chapter 2, offers one formulation of this line of thinking, suggesting by way of Demophiles, a character in his Religion, a Dialogue, that, quote, where you have masses of people of crude susceptibilities and clumsy intelligence, sordid in their pursuits and sunk in drudgery, religion provides the only means of proclaiming and making them feel the height importance of life. That's end quote. Footnote 28 cites the source. Here, Schopenhauer paints a rather dismal and less than flattering portrait of humanity, according to which human beings, sans religion, are barbaric and incapable of naturally providing their own moral compass. Were they not acquainted with religion and the moral guidance provided by holy texts, the implication is that human beings would remain consumed by their own selfish earthly passions and remain wholly ignorant of, or worse, unconcerned with the plight and welfare of their fellow human beings. Albeit a bit crude, this characterization captures the view of some, and perhaps many, with respect to the relationship between religion and moral conduct. However, those making a case for the moral necessity of religion need not voice their case as strongly as Schopenhauer's character does here. Instead, they might simply argue that, while categorically necessary for all people, while not categorically necessary for all people, such religious sympathies are necessary in order for some individuals to realize their moral potential. As examples, proponents of this position might point to former hardened criminals who claimed they would never have turned over a new leaf and assumed a straight and narrow path had they not found God. Such cases are familiar to many of us. The implication is still that religion elicits moral behavior that would have otherwise never come to fruition, at least in terms of some segment of the population. While many proponents of the thesis under consideration think that the development of morality is dependent, whether for some or for all individuals, on religion, others simply maintain that religion yields moral benefits to society, i.e., they do not go so far as to claim that religion is necessary for morality. Indeed, religion may still prove useful for society in moral terms, even if it is not thought to be necessary for the establishment of our basic moral sensibilities. Ultimately, while shying away from the claim that we would have no semblance of morality were it not for religion, which is a stronger claim to be sure, one might still argue that religion allows us an easy means by which to propagate morality. Gregory S. Paul, whose empirical findings regarding the relationship between religion and morality will be discussed later in section D of part 2, likely has this distinction in mind when he writes, quote, "At one end of the spectrum are those who consider creator belief helpful but not necessarily critical to individuals and societies. At the other end, the most ardent advocates consider persons and people inherently unruly and ungovernable unless they are strictly obedient to the creator." End quote. Footnote 29 cites the source. I now turn to a brief account of two major themes underlying most arguments in favor of the thesis under consideration, which Mill himself distinguishes and highlights as he proceeds with his analysis. First, many think of religion as a sort of enforcer of morality, as something that helps to inspire moral behavior that might otherwise be lacking. The idea here is that religion helps provide the motive for people to act in a moral manner. Those who make this kind of case typically appeal to the threat of eternal punishment, for example, hell, for immorality, and the promise of eternal reward, for example, heaven, awaiting those who behave morally. Granting moral behavior on the part of religious individuals may be, and no doubt for many is, solely inspired by a desire to emulate a good and loving God. For others, it is thought to stem primarily from the thought of eternal consequences in an afterlife, which is embedded in their religious convictions. Accordingly, the threat of eternal consequences is said to act as a deterrent for unwanted behavior here on earth. In addition to acting as a formidable enforcer of morality, religion is often credited with introducing a large number of people to morality. That is, religion is viewed as a kind of teacher of morality. In contrast to the notion that religion is an enforcer of morality, the point here is, quote, that granting the sufficiency of human motives to make the rule obeyed, were it not for the religious idea, we should not have had the rule itself, end quote. Footnote 30 cites the source. Characterizing supporters of this view, Mill writes, quote, "They say that religion alone can teach us what morality is, that all the high morality ever recognized by mankind was learnt from religion." End quote. 31 cites the source. Footnote 31 cites the source. Along these lines, one might also suggest that religion offers a powerful voice on behalf of morality, citing, for example, the efficient means it provides for delivering moral teachings. Given the mass followings of the various religions in question, religious messages have a very large audience, which in turn likely makes disseminating moral messages and encouraging ethical strictures much easier when they are involved. Moreover, religion can be said to preserve and pass on moral wisdoms and teachings from generation to generation, providing society with a valuable service in doing so. In general, advocates of this line of thought assert that religion offers an ideal vehicle to deliver a moral message to the bulk of humanity, a message that might never have otherwise been received. On a related note, there are those, including, as we shall see, Mill himself, footnote 32. I discuss Mill's endorsement of this point in section B of part 2, end of footnote 32, who suggest that we have religion to credit for our initial discovery of moral conduct, and that, at the very least, we owe it a historical debt of gratitude. The idea here is that, devoid of religious influence, we would have never originally uncovered our sense of morality in the first place, and thus religion was necessary for the initial emergence of it, although religion may no longer be necessary for morality any longer. This is not so much an argument for why religion is presently useful for moral purposes, but rather an argument for why it was historically useful for such purposes. Hence, the implication is that morality is the legacy of religion, and that without religion, the birth of morality would have been aborted. It is worth emphasizing that, if true, most of what Mill says gives us good reason to be skeptical of the thesis we are considering. with regard to both religion's ability to act as an enforcer and to act as a teacher of morality. However, Mill takes it one step further than this. Not only does he call into question the positive influence of religion on morality, he goes so far as to suggest that religion might be antithetical to moral progress. Footnote 33. This claim is discussed in more detail in section C of part 2. End of footnote 33. It's no surprise then that Mill tasked himself with writing Utility of Religion, wherein he expresses his moral misgivings regarding religion, given that in his autobiography he writes, quote, "On religion in particular, the time appears to me to have come when it is the duty of all who, being qualified in point of knowledge, have on mature considerations satisfied themselves that the current opinions are not only false, but hurtful, to make their dissent known," end quote. And footnote 34 cites the source. I now turn to a discussion of Mill's analysis of the relationship between religion and morality. So again, that was section A of part 2 of chapter 1, John Stuart Mill and Utility of Religion. From the Utility of Religion, Mill, Nietzsche, and James.